Welcome to Founders Espresso podcast. Start your day with inspiring stories and actionable tips from founders to fuel your entrepreneurial journey. Sip up and scale up together. Okay.
I have the red recording, so I think
Yes.
it's
Perfect. Lovely. So, Oliver, can you provide me a one sentence description of your startup and share your long term vision for its future?
Yeah, sure. So I've just launched a venture studio builder called Cocreatd. And the whole vision or reason Cocreatd exists is to invest and back the next generation of marketing and creative entrepreneurs. The reason I've chose this mission is I've worked in marketing for about 15 years. I've been at every stage of a company's development from day zero through to, taking a company public and being part of different stages of organizations, and each of them have unique challenges, and you have to think differently about how you build teams. So in this next chapter of my life, I want to pay it forward and help people go on that journey from idea through to hopefully building lots of businesses that add a lot of value in the world. And then the second part of that relates to there is a lot of change in the world right now, and whenever anything changes, you only have two choices. There's what the majority of people do. They ignore, they pretend things aren't happening, they assume it won't affect them, or you can do what the minority does, which is you can dive in, disrupt, try and walk a path that hasn't been walked before. And I always find that area really exciting and fulfilling. So I'm in the change business, for lack of a better term.
Love it. I love it. Oliver, I'm very curious. How did you start? Like the initial steps in this journey, like when you just realize, okay, I want to do this, and how do you approach this kind of new wave of of entrepreneurial mindset and
Yeah,
creation?
my entrepreneurial journey wasn't as cliche as many others. I didn't drop out of university. I went to university and studied music. After university, I went and got a corporate job in a large media owner. Then I joined a startup, and that was a very successful startup. And all along that journey, I was doing side hustles and, always had an entrepreneurial flair, but maybe not had the confidence. And then it took me probably about 8 to 9 years of a professional career before I eventually went out on my own, built a business, exited that business recently, and then started to embark on this new journey. So I think the founder story has become a little cliche. People think that you have to do it from the jump out of university and you have to eat glass for many years. I didn't. I followed a structured path. And then in terms of my motivation, how I found my big idea, I believe I've sort of, over the last decade, collected a set of skills that mean I understand how to build teams. I understand my domain expertise as a marketeer, as a practitioner. I think that's really important. I've made many mistakes. I've seen a lot. So now was I suppose, the collective sum of all those experiences led me to where I am today. But I do think there's a falsehood that you have to have all the answers when you start your entrepreneurial journey and the reality, the most likely outcome of your first business endeavor is probably going to fail. Even your second might fail, and then your third might make, but every time you go through the process, you increase your odds of making it. And making it is different for everyone. If you're taking on a moonshot sector and you're going after, big ideas, your chances of succeeding are very low. If you're trying to set up a, coffee shop where you have a passion for coffee and you want to create a great experience, your chances of success are much higher. But maybe so. I think my number one bit of wisdom through that journey is pick something you genuinely care about, because too many people pursue ideas that they're not passionate about. And building a business is very difficult. So you have to at least like the domain, the area, or have some passion for the craft.
I see. I see. I love it. I love it. Your approach, Oliver, because it's something that maybe it's not frequently shared in this
Mhm.
startup world. Like you don't have to start in this startup grind set and destroy yourself, your young age, and just work, work. I love it, this kind of approach of let's try different pattern,
Mhm.
understand yourself. Work in a corporate, in a company, to build your skills, your set of skills, and then
Mhm.
jump whenever you're. And it's something that with my Italian friends I see a lot of the times. Like they started with a normal job,
Mhm.
they started to realize what they like, what they don't like, and then they started to
And
jump this in this world.
And you would be fascinated. We have this idea that all entrepreneurs, if you don't do it when you're young, you've missed the boat. The average entrepreneur is 42 years old, the age of the person starting their first business. So I
Amazing.
believe when you're young, yes, you have the privilege often of taking more risks. So there is nothing wrong with straight out of the gates having an idea and running into walls and failing and hustling. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you learn a lot doing that. But equally, you can go into a path where you can build a network, take a good salary, learn,
So,
build the foundations. And if I look at my own career, I started corporate, I went into a startup, I then built my own business, I then sold that, and then now I'm progressing into building lots of businesses. So there is quite a, even that I never imagined I would walk this specific path, there
mhm.
is quite a logical sequencing. And
Absolutely.
I've taken a lot from each of those experiences.
Amazing, amazing. Like it. So, Oliver, I can ask you, how did you met your co-founder, if you had one with this new venture, and what made you decide they were the right partner for this journey?
So I have three partners with me on my co-founder. In my previous business partner, we worked together for about 8 to 9 years. We were best friends. We worked together, and that's amazing because you get to work with your best friend. It can also be challenging because work can be difficult when you have
So,
different ideas, opposing ideas, etc. When I was picking a co-founder this time, there were people I've met along the way that in my journey where I really respected them or I really valued their ad.
mhm,
And I think when you think about a co-founder, you should always look to pair yourself with people that have complementary or differing skills.
mhm.
As you go through your career, you learn what you're great at. And there are many things that I'm good at, but there are many things I'm not. And in bringing together my co-founders, I brought together people that were a lot better than me in certain areas. So I have three: one Paul Stevens, one um, James Lawson Barker, and the other is Simon Whitaker. Each of them have different backgrounds, each of them bring different skills. And actually, we have this really nice collective, and there's almost an understanding. But what we did do when we founded the business was be very clear on the role each of us would play. Ambiguity is very dangerous in a startup. It's here's the domain you're responsible for, and I trust you to make the penultimate decision. And here's where I want to focus my energy and what I'll be responsible for. And because my co-founders are all experienced, built businesses, been part of the industry for a long time, we all were kind of aligned very quickly.
I see. I see. I like this approach of kind of working with someone that you respect, also from a personal side, and also this kind of understanding what you lack and try to find in the other and trust them. Like this is super interesting. Like trust them that they're gonna deliver their own task and you are gonna deliver your own task. So it's kind of this match. I like it.
Yeah, it's super important. Trust is a huge thing, and I think when you're making it's like some of the most consequential decisions you'll ever make in life is who is your partner, your other half, your romantic half. That's one of the most consequential decisions. Who do you choose to have a family with?
Sure.
The same is said in business. Who you choose to go into business with is a very important. So don't be flippant about it. I think it's important to have that as a really considered sort of decision.
Absolutely. Oliver, can you describe your approach to customer feedback in your entrepreneurial journey and how it has influenced your product development and in general as startup development?
Yeah, we live in a very unique time where we can broadcast our ideas, our thoughts publicly, and we can validate them and find out if people like them ever before we ever create anything. If you went back 15 years, it was impossible. You had to go come up with an idea, you had to go raise capital, you then had to go spend years building it to only find out that people may not want it. That was a
Super
surefire
true.
way to waste a lot of energy. The wonderful thing about the internet, today you can broadcast, you can poll, and you can validate ideas really quickly. That doesn't mean they will make a successful business, but it does mean that you can find a market and you can create products and services quicker than ever before. What I will say, and these are not my words, but the words of a great, customer feedback can only take you so far, because customers don't know what they haven't had before, and we're entering a new frontier where generative AI, particularly, and other emerging technologies like the blockchain, are rewriting the rules. They're creating new paradigms, and they're creating opportunities that we didn't know existed. So for that very reason, by definition, customer feedback will only take you so far. But at every stage of your journey, I'm a big fan of founders building in public. You have an idea, throw it out into the world. And the wonderful thing about feedback is you can either evolve your opinion, you can reaffirm what you already believe, that you're doing the right thing, or you can be told it's wrong and it doesn't work. And that again will save you time. So there are never any losses when you try and acquire feedback.
I see. I see. It's so interesting because there is a quote from Harrison Ford, who said, like, if you go and ask to people what do they want regarding transportation, they would say just a faster horses
That's the horse, yes.
and not a car. And it's super interesting because
Yeah,
it's magic.
it was propagated as well by Steve Jobs famously. He said if
Mm,
we waited for customer feedback, we'd never have the iPhone. So
absolutely.
it always depends. You can have
Abs-
it depends. And being honest, feedback isn't always right, but you should always listen. I think that's the important. And
True.
then a founder's intuition is also equally as important.
True. True. Oliver, can you tell me what growth strategies have proven most effective for your startup and what made them particularly successful for your business?
Yes, so think of your business journey as a series of chapters or stages. In your 0 to 1 phase, which is where you're, as a founder, wearing every hat, you maybe don't have the resources, you're trying to get from that 0 to 1 phase. At that stage, it's incredibly important that you have an intensity about how you operate. And you should surround yourself with people that share your passion. I always believe whenever you found a company, the first 10 people through your walls will often define the long-term success of that business. So I think very early on, obsess over who you let in, have a very high bar for who joins you. You have to have people that are multifaceted, generalists that can wear many hats. I think early on, try not to obsess over having all the answers. I think that can lead to decision fatigue when you're trying to get the perfect product or the perfect marketing campaign. You've kind of got to reiterate 1,000 times to get your way to the right answers. So I think it's really important. And then as you start to progress through maturing stages, that's where things like systems, process, delegation, and there's a big difference between being able to drive the start and the seed of a company through to then scaling a company. That's where
Absolutely.
you start to specialize. That's where some people are really terrible founders, but exceptional managers.
I see.
So it's like you've got to understand that there's a different role at different stages of a company's organization. And my underlying truth is your future success will be determined by the people that you can do it with. So fundamentally, hiring is the game. Every business is a recruitment company. Everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally see. Do you have any unconventional grow hack on the other side, like maybe something that is not a standard approach that work pretty well in your experience?
Yes, I would say my absolute biggest growth hack is, if when you're looking for talent, look for people that are doing unusual things. So for example, if you're looking to forge a marketing team and you want a really good marketeer, yes, you could go to someone who's walked that path and built a business, but I would much rather find some obscure kid on the internet that's doing wild, crazy things and like lacks all structure, but has just this genius and knows the world around them.
Sì,
That's the person I would like in my walls early, because A, it keeps me sharp as an entrepreneur, but B, you kind of have to, if you want outlier results, you have to look where other people aren't looking. I've done the
absolutely.
same for some of my creative hires and people I've brought in. They've come from unconventional backgrounds. Historically, if we were hiring marketeers, we'd hire people that built meme communities, that knew how to capture attention on the internet. Because
Interesting.
as we progress into the future, our ability to create products and services gets easier, the ability to capture attention gets harder. So it's really, really important that it's, I read an article recently and it spoke about how technology companies now are talking less and less about tech and more about marketing, because they
Absolutely.
understand the friction of building things is getting, is reducing all the time. So, you only have to look to the open source community or things of that nature. And yeah, it's
Sì.
wild what's going on.
Super interesting. I totally agree in this sense of especially like marketing, but especially these communities, these
Yeah.
tribes. I totally agree. Like for me, it's like the same. Like the real value is gonna be creating these kind of tribes, creating this sense of being part of something rather than just providing a solution to a pain. It's
Yeah.
very
And,
interesting.
and I will say as well, this is one thing I see all startups make, is they spread themselves too thinly in their marketing efforts. The number one thing you can do is focus. If you build for example, a B2B service, you should master LinkedIn as a founder yourself, but also as a team. And there will be a pull for you to go, let's do a newsletter and let's do, an Instagram account. All of that is just distraction. If you go, we are, you can scale a giant business from one channel if you obsess over that singular channel. And there's an idea that you have to diversify. It's an idea in investing that you don't have to diversify. You have to find one thing and become excellent at it. So
True.
I think that's probably another, what I would say is maybe another slightly unconventional view to how to scale a business, is the level of focus in one area.
Very interesting. Oliver, can you share a mistake or a failure that taught you a valuable lesson and describe the emotions you experienced during that time and how did you work through those feelings in those challenging moments?
Mistakes. There are many of them. It's always hard when someone asks you to hone into one specific mistake. I would say that some of the mistakes I've made, that on a personal level, my natural disposition is to be a people pleaser. And I don't know if you have a similar disposition, but as a people pleaser, you sometimes avoid difficult conversations.
Absolutely.
And there are many times as I've matured through my career, I recognize that having tough conversations is not only necessary, it's an absolute critical factor to your success. And alongside that, there's a kindness to like radical candor. So I've had many, and my biggest regrets have always been maybe when a team member hasn't performed and then I speak to them, and if you get to a point where you may have to let them go and they are shocked, that's a failure on my part. If someone is shocked that they've had to be let go, it means that you haven't given them feedback, you haven't been
Absolutely.
honest. And I've done that many times. I've avoided difficult conversations and chosen easier path. And then on reflection, you never feel good about it. So I'm much more comfortable at this stage of my career being honest with everyone around me. And honesty isn't always well received, but I know it's bringing me. I think you can avoid a lot of conflict and a lot of hardship just simply by trying to be as truthful as you possibly can.
I totally agree. I totally agree, especially because when you tell the truth, the real truth in depth, you just share your ultimate goal and mission, and
Mhm.
also, especially with relationship, it's super. It's a strength. It's not. It's something that could give solidity at the end. So you just give. For example, I tell you the what I'm imagining working with you, and you tell me what you think about, and then this kind of sharing information is crucial. I see. See.
Yeah, and particularly if you work in a world of subjectivity, a lot of my career has been spent media marketing, creative. These are areas that are very subjective. If I
Sure.
say your work's not good enough, that's a very personal attack, but it's the truth. As long as I pair that with compassion and say it's not good enough, but this is how you make it better, for
Absolutely.
these reasons. So yeah,
I see.
that's probably been a thread in my career and the reason I share that is not because it's a big mistake, but it's a perpetual mistake I've continued to make, and I've had to work
I
hard
see.
to try and address it.
I see. I see. Thank you, Oliver. Oliver, what daily habit or routine has positively impacted your productivity or motivation as a founder?
Motivation's really it's really an interesting topic because you're not always motivated. Either I love what I do, I love the people I work with. I'm not always motivated. So I try to focus on discipline. I'm a big believer in setting systems and crystallizing them. If I make a habit with the founders I work with, if I say you need to be more active and raise your profile and you need to speak on LinkedIn, I say let's have a basic commitment that you will do that 3 times a week in perpetuity forever. And I will say, as a founder, everyone's going to ignore you for 3 years, but you're still going to keep showing up, and you're going to get really busy, and you're going to have a million other things that you deem more important, but just show up those 3 times a week. I've done that myself, and I believe in motivation will waver. Discipline doesn't have to. So I'm a big believer in being disciplined. How do I stay motivated? I think it's important of having micro goals. This sense of forward motion is really important. I'm a big believer by starting the week and having, 2 to 3 things that you're committed to doing, plus the BAU and the hygiene of running a business. But then you also have to have aspirations and bigger goals.
Absolutely.
I think have
Absolutely.
those long-term, things that you set out that make you feel uncomfortable, that also may be a little delusional. I think that's important. That always gives me inspiration.
Yes.
And they're the probably few things that I think help me.
I like it. Thank you, Oliver. Do you have, when you face uncertainty, Oliver, how do you make crucial decision for your journey, for your startup? Are there any specific frameworks or guiding principles that help you navigate this moment?
Yeah, I typically use a little bit of a Jeff Bezos framework. The idea of you have 2 types of decisions. You have irreversible and reversible decisions. And if you're not familiar with that, a reversible decision can be something that's easy to change. An irreversible decision is something that isn't easy to change, and a lot of decisions fall into that camp. And I'll tell you why. For example, if I said to you, I want to create a new benefit in the company where everybody gets this extra thing in perpetuity. You get a gym membership, right, as part of our
Hmm.
benefits. That for me is an irreversible decision. Say the company has a difficult financial period for a few months and we have to cut our costs and we have to get rid of that benefit. That would destroy because it feels owned by everyone. It's only a small benefit, it's only a gym membership, but fundamentally, people, once it's been implemented in an organization, it's very hard to take that away. So
Absolutely.
seemingly that seems a policy or a benefit decision seems like a small throwaway decision. I consider that a irreversible one, similar to hiring. Not that you can't replace someone or you can't change track if someone isn't appropriate or you're not right for that person. But if you go down that path and you don't put the same sort of thought process into those
Hmm.
things, and then with everything else, I don't overthink them. And my simple view is if I'm right more than I'm wrong, then the business will be okay. But I do think it's important on those decisions you have to have clear deadlines and you have to put sort of measurement frameworks in place. So a good example of that might be, okay, we're trying a new way of validating or qualifying clients. This is my objective criteria. What we'll do, we'll set a meeting in 3 months' time and say, we'll evaluate, has our conversion gone up? If the answer to that's no, then we've made the wrong decision, we'll change direction. So
Absolutely.
again, it's very important that if you're making lots of decisions, which all founders have to do, you have appropriate measurement frameworks in place.
I see. I see. On the line of Jeff Bezos, one thing that I love from this his approach is like this. He's always talking about this kind of fast pace. So if you are fast, you need to be fast in taking decision and change. And I totally agree with this kind of moving forward pace. So because if you get the wrong answer, if you're fast enough, it doesn't matter because then you'll find a good answer and the correct answer. And so
And it's the
love it.
humility, you're right there. It's the being able to recognize and take a lesson from those decisions. And actually, your entire career will be defined by making lots of micro decisions and reflecting and going, that worked. Because when you're confronted with those 2 to 3 choices in the future, you now have a body of evidence, you have data. And that's the thing
Absolutely.
about experience. It's not talked about enough. Experience is simply data. You collect more of it. And if we can say that, you have less data when you start your career, you're much more likely to fail. If you're more experienced, you're much less likely to fail for those
Absolutely.
reasons alone.
Super true. Oliver, 3 characteristics of a founder that you think you should have.
Number one, you have to have ambition. Otherwise, there are much easier paths. I think ambition is critical. Number two, I think you need to be a lifelong learner, extremely curious. And that's critically important. Number three, I think you have to be a calm head in a chaotic room. It's very important that you have coping mechanisms to be the calmest person, because often a founder is the most senior person in the room. And if things are going wrong and you're, chaotic, you will, raise the temperature of everyone around you. If you're calm, you'll cool the temperature of everyone around you. So I think it's really important to be calm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oliver, if you could go back to day one, what's the one piece of advice you'd give yourself that would have saved you significant time or stress?
One piece of advice. So I wouldn't say this saves me stress, but it's probably my favorite sort of entrepreneurial bit of wisdom. And it is that it is just as much effort, time, resources to build a small business as it is a big. However, to build a big business, the outcomes and the rewards are much greater. Business is difficult. So that's why I'm a big believer in raising your aspirations. And I come across this all the time. There are so many, particularly young founders, that haven't built confidence or don't truly have self-belief. And they have all the skills, all the capabilities. And if you can give them that belief, they're the type of people that can run through walls. It's usually one of the missing ingredients, actually. I should have had that in my 3 things, self-belief.
So last question, Oliver, then we are finished with this amazing chat. Can you share me your deeper why? So the driving purpose behind your startup and explain what keeps you motivated on the toughest days.
So I have 3 whys right now. Probably I like building new things. I get a lot of fulfillment out of creating value out of nothing, having an idea and seeing it come to life, and that's a real motivation. I enjoy building things with people I like. That's always been a motivation. I've been very lucky throughout my career to work with some amazing people, some of my best friends I've worked with, etc. I think that's really important, building things with people I like. And then the third thing is, a motivation is, I don't think finances and wealth creation is a dirty word. In Britain, we seem to have this negative relationship with it. I would love to create, generational wealth for my future family, for my current family, and all of those things. So I'm definitely more financially motivated now than I was when I was younger. I wasn't financially motivated at all, which is unusual.
I see. I see. I totally agree with this generational wealth, like trying to create something for your future generation. I love this kind of approach. Okay, Oliver, thank you very much. It was an amazing chat. I finished with the question.
Well, good stuff.
It was super nice.
Yeah, good man, and congrats on what you're doing. I think it's a
Thank you.
really interesting
Thank you very
thing.
much, Oliver.
I
Thank
wish
you.
you the very best.
Thank you.
Cool.